The Louis Miller Museum, and we are interviewing people as part of our military series. Would you please state your name?
Harold S. Cottrell.
And where do you live, Harold?
I live in Fox Hollow.
In Fox Hollow. All right. Would you tell us a little about where you're from and so forth?
Well, I lived in Johnsonville, was born in the Samaritan Hospital, and then my family moved away. We moved down to Westchester, Peekskill, New York. And I went to school there in the public school, and I graduated from Peekskill High School in 1939. And I think our governor graduated from there.
Yeah, from Peekskill, right.
It's funny, he wasn't born yet.
Oh, no.
Anyway, I worked doing landscaping, some caddy on the Mahancy Golf Course, and then I went to work in a defense plant over in Bridgeport, Connecticut, Bridgeport Brass. We made shell casings for mostly the Navy, 105s, some 120 millimeters. And about that time my brother got drafted into the service, and I couldn't see him going and I staying home. So I enlisted at West Point. They had an Air Force, they had started there, and we were there for about 15 days taking basic training, and they started up Stewart Field. And they sent us all up there, and they started bringing...
That's in Newburgh.
That's in Newburgh.
Right.
Well, that's one of the largest fields in the East, I guess.
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
It's a big place. They did an awful lot of work. Yeah, when I went there, it was about the size of Bennington Airport.
I see.
And they took a couple of mountains down, about like Mount Anthony, and leveled it all out, and they filled it up with airplanes. We trained their primary trainers, basic and advanced training for West Point cadets. And I was there from June of '42 to July of '43. And then I shipped out to Aerial Gunnery School in Tyndallfield, Florida. I spent...
Can I just interrupt you? What did you do when you were in Stewart Field? What was your job?
I trained as a mechanic.
I see.
And I wound up as a crew chief on 2 AT-6s. That's advanced, single-engine advanced trainers.
All right. So you kept them flying so they could train people.
We did all the maintenance.
Right. Okay, I'm sorry. Go on. You were... all right, what did you do then? You became a gunner.
They were looking for volunteers. The Air Force flying crew were all volunteers. Nobody was drafted. It was pilot, co-pilot, whatever you did. I was in, I think it was September when I left Tyndall Field. And we went to Salt Lake City Replacement Depot. That's where they made up bomb crews. And they sent a bunch of us down to the 400th Bomb Group in Alamogordo, New Mexico. And we started to train there for the Philippines or someplace. But all of a sudden they changed their mind, and they took the whole 400th Bomb Group and moved it to South Carolina, Air Base in Charleston. It was nobody there. And we finished our aerial training by flying anti-sub patrol anywhere down to the Bahama Islands and all through South Atlantic. And then one day we got our orders and we went to Mitchell Field, Long Island. We were there longer than we normally had been. And we picked up a brand new B-24, 4-engine bomber. And we opened the orders according to the law. I was 12 miles outside of the United States. And we were headed for Italy. It took us quite a while. We flew the southern route all the way down to Fortaleza. That's in Brazil, I guess. And there we took off and we flew across the Atlantic and we landed in Dakar, Africa. We spent 2 or 3 days there. I can't remember the big pass there, the big mountain. Anyway, it was fogged in. And the first morning that they told us to take off, the first plane that took off went out and boom, it blew up.
It hit the mountain, or?
They sent another one up, it blew up. So then they grounded everything. They had sabotaged those planes.
Oh, somebody had sabotaged the plane?
Who? I don't know. We weren't there too long after that. A few hours, they finished checking the planes and we took off.
What was your job on the B-24?
I was an aerial engineer and aerial gunner. I flew as a gunner most of the time.
I see. But were you a field engineer, what they call a flight engineer? Is that?
Yes.
That's what.
Basically, all you did was transfer fuel from tanks to tank, because you get an engine, something happened to it. Maybe catch on fire. You'd have to feather it, put it out. We'd take and shut that tank off and transfer it to another engine.
I see. So
We
you
could
were a
fly
flight
pretty good
engineer
on
and
2
a gunner.
engines.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, we flew to Marrakech, Africa. Next day we went to Eloina, and that night, in the middle of the night, they got us up and we flew, and we dropped. I didn't think there were bombs because I didn't see nothing blow up, but we dropped something. And next thing I know, we landed in a field, and I think it was the 484th Bomb Group in Italy. And they told us to take. We slept out on the ground in the snow. They probably didn't know we were coming or anything, but we ate Spam. They had Spam cans like that. That's all we had to eat. But they took the plane from us, and they shipped us up north to Foggia. There was a B-17 outfit there. That's the only one, 97th Bomb Group. That was the only one in Italy. All the rest were either medium or heavy bombers. And we started flying missions. I guess the first mission we flew Ploesti oil fields, one of the worst places you could fly. It was about an 11-hour mission from where we were. They split our crew up. My pilot and tail gunner were flying off my right wing, and we had another gunner in another plane. We saw the pilot's plane go down, and that's the last we heard from it. And the other fellow who was in our crew, they went down too. You couldn't believe that you could fly through that flak, that aircraft. You couldn't believe it.
And where were the oil fields? Romania?
Ploesti. That was in the southern Balkans.
Balkans, yeah.
Yeah, they thought a lot of those oil fields. They had about 260 anti-aircraft guns. And when we were going to school, we had an officer with a bunch of shells. We went to interrogation. He says you can fly as low as you want to or as high as you want to. They'll still hit you. They had up to, they was tall as I, 255 millimeters anti-aircraft.
I see. What? Where was your? Where did your gunner? Which one were you? There was 4 or 5 gun places
Well,
on
I
the
flew
B4.
off the Martin turret, was the top turret.
Yeah.
I flew one mission in the Sperry Ball turret.
And the ball turret. Yeah.
And I have claustrophobia, so I didn't go back down there.
Yeah. I see. But the flight engineer usually was up in the upper
Yeah.
one.
And but I flew the waist gun a lot.
I see. All right.
We had old planes, no blisters, they were open, cold, 45, 50 below zero. We used to carry bobby pins. Our gloves plugged into our shirt or into our jacket. Sometimes something happened to the glove, you'd take it, short them across, so the rest of the suit would work.
What year was this when you were in Italy and flying these things? Do you remember? Was it
44.
in 1944?
We started flying in February 1944.
I see.
Well, we flew over probably 4 or 5 different targets in, well, Bucharest, Budapest, Austria, some parts of Yugoslavia, and Italy. I went as far as this Toulon sub-pens. That was Toulon, France. That was in southern France. I made another trip over Ploesti oil field. And we lost 2 engines. And we're talking 5 hours from our base. But we flew, and we got over the Boeing mines, which are in Yugoslavia. They're near where they are having all the trouble with the Muslims there.
I see.
We stayed away from them. They'd cut your fingers off if you had a ring on it. They thought it was Masonic ring or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, 2 planes come in at us. When they got close enough, we could see what they were. They were P-38s. P-38s were a twin engine. They could fly on 1 engine. And they were flying on 1 engine. And they took us to the coast. And then we threw everything out. All the guns and everything went into Adriatic Sea. We were only maybe 350, 400 feet above the water. We only had those 2 engines.
Yeah, right.
They were pretty well beat. But as we got near the coastline in Bari, Italy, the air currents, we started picking right up. And the pilot says, "Get your guns out." There were these Bari guns, and shooting flares. We shot everything we had. All we did was make a little loop, and we landed. If anybody had been away, we landed on top of them because
There was an airfield right near Bari.
yeah, that was Air Force headquarters.
Yeah. We had a fellow in town that loaded the bombs on those planes in Bari, outside of Bari.
Around Bari?
Yeah, right. Ted Lucas, his name is. He told me the story.
What was his name?
Ted Lucas. He was there right from the beginning when they started building that field at Bari.
Yeah.
All right, so you're coming in now, and you landed on that airfield near Bari.
We landed there, and they put us up for the night. And the next day, they took us to Air Force headquarters and interrogated us. And we met Major General Twining. He was in charge of the 15th Air Force. That took care of all the heavy bombers. But I flew the 21st mission. I flew over Austria. In Austria, they have a giant hedgerow. Did you ever hear of it? The largest hedgerow in the world.
Yeah, it's in Vienna, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. That's at Sturberg.
You must have seen it.
Yeah, it's
We
beautiful.
could see it. We were up about 28,
Yeah, I've seen it.
29,000
I've
feet.
been in it, yeah.
And we made a chandelle to the right. There was probably 400 bombers altogether. And of course the fighters never went through flak. And they started. We lost an engine before we ever hit a target. We were heading for a Messerschmitt plant. And that was, how many miles? I don't know, maybe 50 miles.
I see.
But we followed that hedgerow. It's more or less, you think it was a guide. And we dropped our bombs, and we did a chandelle to the right, headed back towards Yugoslavia, and bang, we lost another engine. We got probably 20 minutes past Zagreb, Yugoslavia. The pilot says they think we're going to bail out. And I got hit in the arm and a leg, and radio man, he got hit right across his stomach. It was just like somebody took a knife and opened him up. We don't have no doctors. Patched him up with everything we had, give him a couple of shots of morphine, and threw him out. The first 4 that went out, we never saw again. We don't know what. The rest of us got together in the next 3 or 4 days, week.
But you all bailed out, and then
all bailed out.
And then you of course, you could land different places.
6 of us got back together.
I see.
Yeah. They had me interned. The best I can remember is maybe 2 or 3 days. When I come down, my chute caught on a tree, and I couldn't control it. When I went down, I banged the tree with the side of myself. I still have trouble with it. Broke my ear, and it probably knocked me out. When I come to, I don't know where I was or what. And I see a little boy running. It was a little road. And next thing I know, there was a bunch come out. They had uniforms on, German uniforms on. They took me in and asked me 1,000 questions. And all you give them is one thing: your name and rank and serial number. They had a radio there. I could hear it. They had me in a room. But the funny thing was, I carried my .45 here, and my arm was in a sling. They never searched me. I had that. Actually, we didn't have those, if you stop to think about it, to fight a war. The only reason we had those is if you were hit so bad you couldn't do nothing, you didn't want to jump out, you used them for yourself. But I kept mine. I gave it to a fellow I knew, a Yugoslav partisan. I gave it to him before I got on the plane. The English flew us out eventually.
I see. Now you were captured then, and what did they do? What did these fellas do? You heard the radio and
confined there for a period of time, and then one day we heard a lot of shooting, and 2 big girls, and they had burp guns, German burp guns. They come in, and pretty soon we were gone. I mean, they took us right out of there. But they were Marshal Tito's partisans.
I see.
And so then we were pretty well set. We had a certain amount of protection all the time. We got out. That was in May 24th.
Of 44.
Basically, how I can always remember that.
But when they cut you out,
it was somewhere around the
who flew you out?
English.
English.
The English flying Dakotas. They finally flew us out. You wouldn't think they could fly a plane where they flew up.
Yeah.
Because when they come in, they were brushing the trees. And they couldn't get their wheels up there. The wheels were running on top of the trees when they flew us out. They took 29 of us out of there.
I see. So
we started out with 5 or 6 in that period of time. That's how many guys were shot down that we knew of.
I see. So that Tito's parson, they came and they found the pilots and brought them back.
They took care of communications.
That was great.
Trying to get us something to eat.
I see.
I didn't have no shoes. I had they were like slippers, felt.
Right.
They were heated.
Yeah, right.
And I had my shoes. I tied them on my belt, but when I went through the hatch, when I bailed out, they probably caught and ripped them off.
I see.
It was about a month before they finally dropped some food, and I got some clothes to wear and a pair of shoes. But we walked, and we walked. And there's a place called Glamish Plain. You'd think you're out in some part of Arizona. It was a big flat area and all rock ledges around it. And on the south end of it, they had a landing strip. And they put carbide lights. When it started to get dark, they lit on those, and we could hear a plane, and never saw it. But in the meantime, we could hear a lot of shooting, they said we had to get out of there. The Germans got wise to what we were doing, and they were moving in. So actually this was pretty close to the Dalmatian Alps. And we started walking again. We were dead tired, but we started walking. And we walked until the next morning. Walked all night long. We got way up on a mountain, and there was a little camp there. And there was a lieutenant, American lieutenant, and there was English, at least we said he was English, but he was Churchill, Major Churchill's son. He was a liaison officer. And they gave us food, a little.
And where was this? In Yugoslavia?
Yugoslavia.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yugoslavia ran over the mountain and right down to the Adriatic.
I see.
How high the Dalmatian Alps are, I don't know. But
So
there's trees there that 2 or 3 of us couldn't reach around.
yeah, let me ask you this. You said they flew you out, and then...
They flew us back to Italy.
Yeah, I see, but that's after this, when you did the walk, this is before they flew you out.
Well,
This is how you got to the plane where you
that's how
could
we
get out.
got back.
Yeah, I see. You had to walk,
We
and
had to walk to find the field.
I see, to get the plane to go out.
They
see.
came in and flew us out. They took
Well,
29 in the 6.
I see. How long did it take you, do you think, between the time you were shot down and the time you got on a plane? How
Well,
long do you think you were down?
Probably about 7 weeks.
About 7 weeks. And you was hurt too. Did that heal
Yeah,
up? Or?
Well, they had some homemade wine or something, I think. They poured on it, and all my arm puffed up.
I see.
There's still a piece of shrapnel there, but it's right near that nerve, and they wouldn't touch it.
I see. Well, then they flew you back to Italy.
Pardon?
They flew you back to Italy?
Yep.
All
So
right.
we're back down to Barry. We went there again.
Yeah.
Back in and saw the general and all his lieutenants, and they interrogated us about everything under the sun. And then they could ship us back. It took about 3 hours for us to get back to Foggia. They put us on a 4x4. And it was dark. But the field, not the field, but our encampment was all lit up. And actually we had it was an orchard, olive orchard. And they 4 trees, they were all measured right, put a pyramid tent in, and that was our encampment.
I see.
But my co-pilot was there, and he came out and he handed me a bottle of rum. We took a little with us when we went over, but I took 1 drink out of that and I thought I'd die. I could, no way. But I says, how come all the lights on? And he says, well, we had a new commanding officer. He was out of West Point. He said, he had us dressing up in Class A's to go to that lousy mess hall to eat. Said, we didn't enjoy that. Said, he got shot down today. We're celebrating. I got a kick out of that.
All right, you done? No, you got back to. Did they put you up again? Fly again?
No.
I didn't think so.
There's a tech order. I got to know tech orders. I think I could pick that. If I could find some Army tech orders, I could pick it out.
Yeah.
You were to be sent back to the continental U.S. for a period of 6 months, and then shipped to another theater of operations, because you spent that much time in enemy-occupied countries.
Right.
You could be classified as a spy if they caught you again. They had me listed in there as a prisoner of war and everything else. So this tech order covered that.
All right, so you came back to the States.
And after they shipped us eventually up to Barry, the big field up, and we were there about 9 or 10 days, and they put us on a ship as guards. We brought 1,800 German prisoners back.
I see.
That was in September of 1944.
I see.
And we got in the North Atlantic, and you know those hurricanes you hear about?
Yeah, you could hit one?
Boy, I was in A deck, and that's right up on the bow.
Top, yeah.
And I thought the anchor was going to come right. I thought it was the anchor, but it was the waves.
Yeah.
But we had a destroyer escort,
Yeah.
and you couldn't see them half the time.
Go ahead.
It was so rough. I mean, they were almost like submarines. I said, boy, I don't think I care about that.
I see. So then you hit the States.
We hit the States, Dock 6, I think. You ever been down to the docks down there in New York?
Yeah.
I think it was 6.
Yeah.
And they said they were going to, there's some kind of encampment up the Hudson a little ways.
Yeah.
They were going to give us a big steak dinner, and well, we finally got up there. It was dark, and it was so far away where the mess hall was. I said, "You got a place to sleep?"
Yeah.
I went to sleep. I did put in a call to Peekskill. That was only
not too far.
like calling Albany or something. And the operator says, "Is that you, Tuffy?" They always called me Tuffy now.
I see.
I said, "It was my sister-in-law."
No
She's
kidding.
a telephone operator.
That's it. What a coincidence.
She couldn't get a hold of my mother or my sister, so she let them know that I was.
That you're back in the States.
Well, the next day I got some clean clothes and what have you, and I got a train, New York Central up to Peekskill, and I don't know, one of the taxi cab drivers drove me out to the farm, and then I went to the rehabilitation hospital in Fort Logan, Colorado.
I see.
We spent the winter out there. Then they shipped me back to Texas in let's see, it would be in the north part of Texas, Pernfield. And we had a fellow from Hoosick Falls here area that was stationed there. In fact, he was killed down there. I'll think of his name.
All right.
His father's still living. I don't know about his brother. His father still lives down in Potter Hill. But I stayed there I was supposed to be given a choice under that tech order I told you about.
Yeah. Right, because you...
They finally gave it to me. I went to Seward Field, and I had a fancy belt buckle. And that, I went, of course, I'm new there, for as far as that goes, they all changed when I left there. I guess he would have been my commanding officer. He said, "Soldier, you're out of uniform." I said, "Sir, that buckle is not GI." I said, "Yes, sir." And I looked up. He had his insignias crossed on his collars. And I said, "Sir, your insignias are not on right." Oh, my God.
Boy, he must have been mad at you.
That's the worst thing I could have ever said. But I was trained as a base tech inspector. I inspected airplanes and all installations, everything. So I says, I better do something. So I went to the Post Adjutant General. They are lawyers.
Yeah.
I talked with him. He took down everything. He got my record out. He says, "You know, you got enough points. I can discharge you." I think maybe that's the best thing. And if I decide I want to go back, I can re-enlist it, but it won't be here where he is.
That's right.
So I went home, and I went back to work for a short time in Bridgeport Brass.
Yeah.
And I had to have an operation, so I come back. I went to the VA. They wouldn't do nothing. So I had to find a surgeon that didn't need too much money. I did have, my wife had insurance that would cover the hospital, but I got an operation down in Poughkeepsie, Bassett Hospital, and I couldn't do nothing, so I came up to Hoosick Falls, and I stayed. You knew Bud Stevens.
Yeah.
He was my uncle. And I stayed with them, and in the meantime, over on Wilson Hill Road, the farm right there,
Yeah.
Wilson's, that was, my brother married a Wilson, Norma Wilson. And her aunt was there, and she didn't want to be there all alone, and she wanted to sell it. So I wound up buying it.
I see.
And
So how long have you lived in Hoosick Falls? When did you buy it?
I bought that in 1946.
Oh, you've been here quite a while then.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you've been
Yeah,
here a
I
long
stayed
time.
here. I didn't.
That's 50-some years.
I stayed over there 17 years, and then I had a fire, the barn burned.
I see.
And I bought Tilly's farm in Hoosick, and I had a son. I don't know whether you were in the school or not. I got shot, Jimmy.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. Sure.
I couldn't take it. I had to do something different. So I rigged up a place over in Fox Hollow. We had a lot of trouble. Finally, we took Jimmy out to Institute of Logopedics in Wichita, Kansas. He spent pretty near 4 years out there, but they got him so he could write left-handed, so he could talk.
I think I saw him in Bennington.
You could.
Yeah, because when I was superintendent over Bennington, I think I met him a couple times.
He lives up there. He works where I used to work.
Yeah, I've seen him. I know I've talked to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and how many children did you have?
7.
7 children. Boy, the guys came back from the wars. They sure had children. I'll tell you, everybody I interviewed, 5, 6,
You
7.
probably knew some of my daughters.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Susan, Jeannie,
Oh, yeah.
Karen.
Oh, yeah.
Susan was a teacher. Karen's a teacher down in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And Susan's in Louisiana. She won't teach them. She says, if I can't tell them what to do and they don't listen, I don't want to teach them.
I see. So that took you, now you're around circling. You've lived here since 46. I see. So.
I've been here since 46. When I quit farming, I went to work for Union Carbide up in Bennington.
Oh, Bennington, yeah.
Making watch batteries and
Right.
hearing aid batteries.
I've worked up there too, done some work. Yeah.
Until 1986. I said, I might as well retire.
I see.
And I raised a few beef cows. And
Hey, that's fine. That's a great story. And we thank you very much for coming. We appreciate hearing the story, and we've got it on tape. Let me